Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here, Liz Trotter, and our guest today is Kedma Ough. This is Smart Business Moves. How's everyone today?
Yay!
Yeah, great.
Tom, are you going to mention how it's already the 6th of December?
Can you believe that? It seems like it was
Really,
just
can't.
November, like a week ago.
You're so funny.
It goes so fast.
It really does feel crazy fast for me, though. I am going to my daughter's on Friday, and I'll be gone for a little under a week. And that is just really putting a creak in my normal holiday plan. I'm like,
Putting a what?
a
Yeah.
crick,
A crick.
a crick in my holiday. What's the right term? Is there a better word?
Well, nothing that I could share on a live stream, I guess.
Well,
But
good. Then we'll go with crick.
yeah,
Where is she located?
She's in Texas.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's
Nice.
a nice place to go visit, but wow, I will only have 1 week home before
Mhm.
Christmas, and I haven't put up a
Mhm.
Christmas tree yet or done any
Yeah.
of the things. So I'm feeling like a slacker over here.
crick,
Yeah.
though, that sounds like something my grandmother would say, and she was like West Virginia. I mean, I didn't think that would be a Washington State thing. That
Tom, I like me some lexicon. I like some
yeah,
words that
you're expanding your working vocabulary for sure.
yes, I do like it. Hey, Denise, good to see you here today. You ready to talk about budgeting?
Planning, and it is that time of year because it is December 6th, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be 2022 before we know it.
I know. Yeah. And I think, the thing about budgeting, a lot of times when we say the word budgeting, people just feel like it's taking, chalk and just, and you don't want to do it. But I think you can make budgeting fun. You can make it
Fun, Kedma?
To me, it's fun. To me, it's fun. Like I do believe in making it as a fun experience and to, because there is a lot of anxiety. And guys, it doesn't matter what level of business. I have met people who are doing multi-million and then I mention budgeting and they start stressing and saying they have a team for that. Right. Right. But what it really is that they just don't want to deal with that. So yeah, I think that somehow there's just this emotional relationship with money and currency and budget. And either you really enjoy it or you do everything you can in your power to avoid it. And yeah, and I'm someone who really enjoys it.
That's nice. Okay, well, I'm ready. I got my remarkable here. I'm taking notes. I want to enjoy it. I do. I want to enjoy it.
Well, do you usually enjoy it?
I don't.
I think it would be worthwhile to maybe talk for a minute as to why we even go through the trouble to do budgets. I mean, do we do it because it's fun? There's a lot of things I do. It's fun, and some of them aren't even good for me. But we do budgets, and we can make it fun. But there's reasons that we do it beyond being fun. There's some benefits for doing budgets, and I don't know if that's really clear to everybody. Why do we even want to do a budget?
Yeah, good point, Tom.
Very good point.
Yeah.
I mean, what I would tell people is I can show you companies that have scaled to 7 figures that have not done a budget.
Yeah.
Right. Or if they have done the budget, it's not done well. Or if they've done it, they're not actually, once they've done the budget, it's like putting it on the shelf and letting it collect dust. And they'll say they'll get back to it in a year. Right.
Right.
I think the easiest, my answer, and I would love to hear from you guys what you think, but to me, if you're going to invest in anything, it's so important to measure that investment. So when I think about budget, I'm not just thinking budget as a company. I also think budgeting as a relationship. I think budgeting, like you could take any situation and ask yourself, how can I measure whether or not my time and what we're putting into it is giving me an ROI that satisfies me.
Mhm.
Okay. I like that.
So what I do every year is I like to purge, whether it's purging something from the business, from an accountability, or purging relationships that don't serve me anymore, right? So
Yeah.
you could take budget to a whole different perspective to say, so me, when I budget, is what are the items that we're trying to measure, and when we measure it, is what we measure actually coming to fruition, right? If we measure a certain amount, can we look at it within the next 30 days and see how close we were to that?
Yeah.
And then once we go there, can we look at what do we have to pivot and modify and change? And I'm of the mindset that we should have what we call continuing accounting. I don't believe in budgeting once a year. I believe budget has to be an ongoing conversation every day if possible, so that we can look at how do we move through this in a fluid way, and then immediately change things if necessary.
Well, I've never heard anybody talk about budgeting in terms of a daily activity. So that's really interesting, or a daily conversation. Usually, I'm hearing people monthly, right? I think that's probably most common, is looking at it every month and seeing where you sit and if you need to make modifications. But can you expand a little bit on the daily, Emma?
Well, what daily does is it eliminates a lot of errors that may come up, and also allows you to be proactive in real time of what's occurring. If we wait 30 days, let's say there was a shortage in the industry, let's say some kind of supply thing, and we wait 30 days to try to make a decision on that, we may be making the wrong decision, or we may be making a decision but not have all the information to make the best decision. We also run into a problem because we may be waiting to see, are there any marginal errors we can fix? But if it's daily, if someone is inputting things daily, if someone is reconciling daily, it puts you as the CEO in the best possible decision place to say, are we in the right direction? Do we have to pivot? Can we add more? And it could be as simple as, hey, here's an opportunity right now. Do we have, can we say yes to it? So I'm of the mindset is, if you have it in your infrastructure, I love the idea of continuous accounting. And there are some companies that are really clear on that. I work very closely with very large organizations that think that way, software companies that think that way, tech companies that think that way. Oracle is one of them, very focused on continuous accounting as opposed to waiting at the end of the month.
I actually think that it makes so much sense, especially as you're talking about it for big companies, because big companies, big changes, you could also have big losses, big mistakes, but you can catch things much quicker and you have better opportunities.
Correct.
You can grasp opportunities quicker.
And larger companies have more people in them by definition who impact the P&L and the budget in various ways. So the budget is a way to get everybody involved in alignment, if you will, with what the company goals are.
Agreed. But for a smaller company, a lot of them are doing VAs. Virtual assistant is so inexpensive. If you train them and you have everything migrating anyway into your software, there is no reason why a VA can't spend 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, just making sure, are there any transactions that came through that don't make sense? Where are we daily right now? We're doing it anyway for daily sales. I don't think it would be too hard to jump and say, could we be doing daily budgeting?
Sure.
Yeah.
And, that kind of falls under the umbrella of like KPIs, I guess. And everything from employee turnover to client churn to your cost of goods sold off of every job you did the day before.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really love tracking KPIs on a daily basis. So I see how the budgeting makes really good sense as well. Just doing it on the other side. So
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I would love to just hear from you, Liz. Like, what are you doing? So if I went and sort of took a peek into how you're doing budgeting, what would that look like for the audience? How do you manage budget?
Well, we don't do it daily. Although I'm thinking that does sound good. We do it monthly. We have a meeting on Saturdays, and the first Saturday of every month, we go over the budget and where are we, how close are we to what we thought we would spend, what we are anticipating for the next month, any kind of quarterly type things that are coming up. So we're just we kind of use budgeting more in the way of almost like cash flow management, right? Just watching where the money is going and making sure that it's not just being frittered away. That's more what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd be curious to know from our perspective. I know that we work a lot around planning. We do a lot of budget at this point. We also review a lot of financials to get a sense of where people are at. Be curious from your perspectives, what, Tom and Liz, what have you heard? What have been some of the struggles or the challenges when someone mentions budgeting or sort of looking at annual planning? Have you heard any kind of thoughts, feedback, worrisome?
From other cleaning businesses, other cleaning business owners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, in my strategic success groups, I can tell you that one of the biggest hurdles that I have to get people over, and sometimes it'll take a while. Actually, somebody is, I'm not going to say who, but there's somebody on the call right now that insisted for a year that she didn't need a budget. She was just convinced that she didn't need a budget. She changed her tune. We finally got her. But a lot of times, people are really resistant to the idea of a budget. Especially I find with entrepreneurs, the reason why they don't, so there's a few different things, but one of them is that I find a lot is they don't want a budget. Linda, you're talking about me. You called yourself out there, Linda.
You're talking about me. Linda, welcome to the conversation.
You need to get a budget, Linda, to figure out how much cat food you're buying each month.
Maybe Linda can share what was the pushback, Liz, for Linda? I would love to hear.
Well, there are a couple of things, but the big one is she didn't want to have a budget. She didn't. That was one of the things that she liked about running her own business, is that she didn't have to have a budget. She knew there was enough money in the bank, and she, there's money to pay everything, money left over. She's getting a good income, and so she didn't feel the need.
My business, I do what I want.
That's right. So, she enjoyed in her mind, she enjoyed the flexibility of deciding whether or not to do a budget and why. Just didn't. So that's the first one that we hear a lot, is people don't want to do it because they don't feel like they have to. They are in a situation where the money is good enough that they don't need to do a budget. And then the second one is that people are afraid. They're afraid to put things into a budget because they're going to see things that they can't handle, they can't manage, that they don't know what to do about, and that the whole idea is just too stressful. So that's the second one. The first is I don't want to, and the second one is I'm afraid.
Yeah, and a third one is, people feel like if they don't have a crystal ball, you're asking me to tell you what my revenue is going to be month over month going forward. And, they think they're doing pretty good if they can tell you what their revenue was in the past. So, for me, it depends upon where the business is in terms of its stages of growth.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with somebody that's a startup, yeah, you don't have a lot of history behind you or data. So, take a wag at it, but don't invest, half your time on that,
Yeah.
because you got to go hire somebody. You got to find a home to clean, and you got to find somebody to clean it. And
Yeah.
I've seen people step in that hole before too, that they think
Mhm.
that they're managing their business because they're building out these elaborate spreadsheets and crunching all these numbers, but they're
Yeah.
not generating revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good. Good point, Tom. We do see that a lot.
So the bigger the company gets, the more resources need to go to this type of planning, because the numbers are bigger and the return off the effort's greater.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think if it's fear based, so wait a minute. So I'm curious to know how did you get Linda to do the budget, are we still not there?
No, she's there now.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
yes. So it
Way to
just,
go, Linda.
yeah, good job, Linda.
Good job.
Yeah, it just took a little while for her to accept that it's an important part of doing business and of running a nice, successful business. That you're not going to find big, large, successful businesses that are running smoothly and that don't have a budget. So she's like, oh, all right, I'll just do it then. And
Right.
she just convinced herself that smart cookie. So she convinced herself that she's going to want to do a budget now. She's like,
Right.
so I want to do a budget. So that
Right.
makes it
And
right.
usually those people are going to be your biggest champions, because now you've basically showed them the value of what it looks like if they do it, and then they tend to want to share it with other people.
And they start enjoying it too. They actually really do start to enjoy it. It's like, oh, it's not an anchor holding me down, making it so that I can't move and I can't do things. I think a lot of times people don't want to do it because they feel like they're being, good job, Denise. I'm glad. So Denise is a holdout for the budget as well.
Yeah.
But they feel like it's like handcuffs, that they're being chained and they can't be flexible. They can't do what they want with their money.
But the cool part about it is, when you start managing your business that way, you're one step closer to actually owning a business rather than owning a job. Because at that point, you don't want to be held accountable, but then you're one step away from putting somebody else in a position where they're accountable to that budget. And it's a lot easier for you to manage your business if somebody, you can't delegate that level of authority, that P&L type authority, without a budget in place. But if you do, then you can create yourself a ton of freedom.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would say, just because I'm very sensitive to it, I think that we may need to revisit changing the language of the budget, because it does create inherent stress and anxiety, which is unnecessary. So if I was working with Linda, for example, and she was stressed about it, I'd just say to her, you know what? We're not doing a budget. We're just confirming the recipe we're thinking about to bake this cake actually makes sense. I don't want to be just throwing out sugar and flour, because I'm the worst cook, Linda. And I'm telling you, I torture my family. So let's get the right ingredients, and then we can measure whether that cake is going to come to its perfection. Now, what I've just done is I've just changed the mindset and opened an opportunity for the mind to just not feel that fear.
Yeah.
Because immediately when I say that, people are like, oh, it's just a recipe? Man, I can do recipes.
Creative cooking.
Yeah, creative cooking, because you know what? We can argue budget or anything else, right? If you don't have the right measuring for anything, it can blow up in your face, right?
Yeah.
So what we do is we just take away that risk and we just mitigate it and say, hey, it's not a budget, it's just a recipe. We want to get the right recipe for your company.
Yeah.
And I like what Linda said here. I don't know. Let's see. She says she still doesn't Tom unshared me. There we go.
I'm sorry. Oh. Stop it, Liz. Stop.
I'm not touching it. She said she still doesn't let the budget tell her that she can't buy what she wants. So that's great. is the budget. You're still in charge. Just because you have a budget
right.
doesn't mean
right.
that the budget runs the show now. So I mean that little shift is sometimes difficult for people. Yeah, still buy what you want. Just be aware of it. And just
well, and to your point, I do work with some CEOs that are really, we don't really trust them with how they spend their money. So they do have to concur with some of their team. Like I have one where if it's more than $5,000, he has to get approval by his ops team. Now you think that's madness, but it really isn't, because some people just see money in the bank and then just go out and spend it.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so this is a way for there to be check and balances to say, you can't just, even if you're the owner, it's not wise to go out and just spend an enormous amount of money and when it may not make sense. So
there's decisions in my business that I'm getting ready to do something, and then I pause and say, well, I don't want to have to explain to Kyle why I did this, who is my controller. So I'm just not, we're not going to do it because I don't want to have that discussion.
Exactly.
It's easier to not get the thing than it is to have the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you guys are open to it, I would love to maybe do a little bit of show and tell and just kind of show you. Yeah, let's just see what we can do and what's possible. I would love to talk about budget. I would also love to talk about planning. So if it's okay, let's just maybe just show a couple of, everybody has a different way, but one of my favorite ones is I'm really clear about making sure our job costing makes sense, because you don't want to go ahead and set up a budget and then realize, wow, I've screwed up the job costing. I've really screwed up how to do that. And I've come across enough situations where job costing has played a role, significant role, where people were not pricing correctly, that it's part of what I do when we do the budgeting. So here's what I would love to do. The best way to do it is to kind of show you, just like, I always say I like to run a Montessori school, and I'm very big about show and tell. So let me just show and tell this, if this works for you guys.
Do you see the share button there, Kedma?
Yeah, I'm going to share the screen. And so this will be kind of a powerful visual. Let's see if I can get to it. I'm going to go to my computer. I want to just share it towards my computer, so I'm not as oh, there it is. Share screen. Okay.
Yeah, down to the bottom.
Yeah.
I love show and tell.
Yeah, me too.
Great.
Okay.
I learn well
Now,
with show and tell.
Can you guys see this?
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay. Now let me tell you why this came about. I actually brought this to a head about 1.5 years ago and worked with one of our coaches, Michael Gregory, to make this happen. So what we're seeing here is a typical job costing worksheet. It may vary a little, but it's pretty simple. And this is, we have a 1A, 1B, so you can see sort of the example. This is a real client that went through it. We just kind of doing as a 1A, 1B. And over here to the right, we can change the COGS, but typically we try to stay within a 15 to 25% net profit. We try to keep our overhead 30 to 40 and our COGS, right? Now we can change that. So this is what you typically see, right? You see the amount that's being charged. Of course, with cleaning services, you're going to have recurring revenue. But in this case, you're going to see the amount. You're going to see the cost of goods. You're going to see the labor cost, whatever that labor cost is to manage that. And then you're going to see over here the net profit. So in this example, this looks really attractive. What this is telling us is that based on the $230 amount, this company had a net profit of 38%. I don't think there's anybody here that would argue that that is not a good net profit.
I'll take it.
Right? Is that a good net margin, right?
Yes.
So if they came to me and I did this and they said, well, coach, you know what? We got 38% on this. We're totally fine. Everything's good. I probably would not pay any further attention to it. However, instead of doing that, we take that same situation, 230, but the difference is now is every single month we total the amount of jobs being done, and every job has to have a percentage of general expenses. Now we're going to see the true cost for this job and did they make any money? So nothing changes here. But here's where it changes. We're taking a percentage of the overhead. Now, there's two ways to do this. The first is you can go back to the last 6 months or the last year, and you can get an average total of where your overhead expenses are. Generally speaking, it could be as low as 30%, could be as high as 48, 50%. And then we're going to take a percentage of that, and we're going to add it into every job. When we do that, now we see this business has not been profitable for this job. So,
so what happened? So what I'm seeing here is when they do one job, yes, okay, and we're getting it.
Well, no, this is taking, right. This is taking 48%. So this, in this example, this company on average, their general expenses is sitting at 48%. So they have to split it somehow because they're not selling products, they're selling services, right? They're selling cleaning services, exterior or regardless, they're selling cleaning services. So what we do is we say, if we know that 48% is your general expenses or 40% is general expenses, we add in that percentage to every job. That way we're always guaranteed to be profitable.
So on your first example, when you showed, they didn't have their overhead costs in there at all? Or, oh, I see, there's no.
No, they don't have the overhead.
Oh, gotcha.
They don't have the overhead. So let's do another example. Let's see a bigger one, right? So here we are at $1,000. Okay. Same scenario, okay? Yeah. These are actual jobs. These aren't makeup. These are actual numbers. 47%. Very good. But they didn't consider what is their true overhead expense. So now we go to same thing, same job. Now we add in the 48%. They're at break even.
Yeah.
Okay. So what this allows us to do very quickly is to determine, are they truly profitable? And then we could play with the numbers. We could say, look, you're at 47%, but we have a couple of choices here. If we know that your average is 48% per job, you're not making money. We're either going to have to reduce the cost of your overhead expenses, because where else are we going to get the money? The money is not coming from anything else except the jobs you're selling. Or we're going to have to increase the price, or we're going to have to reduce the COGS, or we're going to have to change how the labor looks.
Right. So it looks like what they're doing is they're not actually coming up with a net profit. They're coming up with more a gross profit, looks like.
Well, yeah, this is typically how it is, right? You have the total COGS, right? So in a typical scenario, if we go over here, let's see if I can get a higher one here. So a typical scenario, their COGS right now is at, sitting at 52%. That means their gross profit is 48%, right?
Right.
48%. This is before expenses. So from their perspective, they would say, Coach, we're doing fine because we're making the money we need. But in actuality, they come in and say, Coach, I don't know why we don't have any money left over at the end of the month. Right? We hear this all the time. Coach, why don't I have any money left over in the end of the month? And I say, because your overheads are taking all that cash you're putting in and you're not considering it. So instead of waiting, this is a perfect example of daily budget. Instead of waiting at the end of the month and saying, Coach, I don't have the money, you're going to know exactly how much money is left over once you pay your overhead expenses. And then you'll know whether you're profitable enough, how much money can go back into the company.
And this is a really good example as why putting together an annual budget's necessary, because you really don't even know how much revenue you need to distribute your overhead across, what that percentage is going to be without a budget. So a budget would give you the idea as to, how much overhead to allocate. And if you're not making your revenue, then that even digs your hole deeper on the allocation. The flip side of it, you might be able to sell your way out of the problem if you could generate additional revenue.
Correct. So here's one example.
Break even is you can't do much. So you've got to have these numbers before. I would be stressed out if somebody came to me just showing me what their gross profit is. How's that even helpful?
That's right. So if I was working with you, Liz, and your team, I would say, let's do a true analysis of what the job is costing and your GP. And then we're going to do one based on percentage. Now, we had to go to number 7. So what I usually tell with my clients is, I want you to pull the last 10 jobs you did Put it through these formulas, and then let's see whether or not it was profitable. We had to get to the 7th job. Now, this 7th job became profitable. They had a net profit of 44%, but when we put in the numbers for the percentage here, they actually net 12%. That is a good one. So what I would tell that Conquer client is, you bid this job correctly. You bid it at $1,200. You were able to pay off, and you had a good GP. You were able to pay off your overhead, which is 48%, and you net 12% to go back into the company. We want to see that for every job.
And so would you be saying that, because it looked like initially that you were trying to hit a target of 15 to 25. So are you thinking that the 12 is good just in comparison to all the
That's right. That's right. That's the only reason I'm doing that, because I want to let them have a win.
Yes, I see that.
And I guess what this also tells you, for any future jobs that you're bidding, you need to be shooting for a cost of goods sold of less than 40% in order to make the numbers work.
Unless you can get your overhead expenses down to a reasonable one, right? And so the easiest way to do this is, everybody listening to this call right now can go back and look at the last 6 months or last year and pull from your financials what your average overhead cost is. Yeah. Whatever that number is, add that percentage to every job, and you'll know whether your company's going to have money left over.
I like that. I never heard anybody doing it by the job. We usually do it by the day.
I love to do it by the job, because I want to know which jobs we lost money on.
Especially if you have some really big jobs and some little jobs, like this large disparity. Right?
Of course.
I see how it makes huge difference.
Right. Right. And in some case, we negotiate. Like in some cases, especially in the exterior cleaning, right? They may have 2 techs on, but in this case, he only brought 1 tech on because his COGS was at 39%. We saw the 12% net profit. So, but this can work in any industry. The takeaway for anyone listening is, restructure your job costs and include the percentage of overhead expense in every job. Once you do that, you will never come to me and say, Coach, I don't know where the money's gone.
Yeah. It
will always be there, and you'll know exactly whether or not you are at that cost you need to be in, that profit you need to be in. And if you're not, then we can negotiate. Right. Yeah. If you say to me, well, I can't charge more than that because my, clients are going to leave me if I charge, more than $80. Okay, then what can we negotiate here? Because the numbers are going to, the numbers don't lie.
Somehow the numbers there has to be net profit.
Has to be.
Unless you're trying to get a 401c, right?
Right, exactly. Or if you are saying to me, like, if you could argue with me and say, listen, Coach, I went through my 10 jobs. 3 of them I'm taking as a leader's loss, but the other 7 are going to make up that net profit and maybe be at a 20%, 22%. I can argue that back. I could say, okay, that's fair. Maybe the 3 that are lost because you're doing community impact, you're having a smaller margin because it's a bigger company. But if I see consistently a net loss or a break even, I guarantee you that company is losing money or not even close to the net margin they need to be in. Guarantee.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I like this. I like this new perspective. I don't think we've ever talked about doing this on just like a single job.
Allocating the overhead to a job as a rule, no, but it's a cool approach. I like it. I like it a lot.
And the thing I like about it is it's something new for the people that are like, oh, this other thing is so hard. It seems overwhelming. Hey, this is just bringing it down to a very, very even simpler way of doing it.
Simple.
If you can't see it one way, maybe you can see it another way. And this is definitely a different way of seeing it.
Yeah.
The other thing that jumps out at me, though, is you've got all your numbers for every job.
You have to.
That's important because, if you don't have the numbers, then you can't do this.
Correct. And the easiest thing is those numbers are already going to happen with the estimate. And there shouldn't be any stress because if you go back and look at your overhead expenses, most of us are in the same, it's not going to be too much difference. We're not going to see a 20% to 50%. If you're in the 30%, you're going to see 30 to 32. So you're going to have that as pretty much a fixed. But I think, Tom and Liz, what it does is it wakes them up to say, okay, now I know where the money is going. Because if you don't do it this way and you don't have products, where do you think the money's going?
Yeah.
Who's paying for everyone? And let's be real. That admin person who's not on the job but is answering the phone call and inputting the data and making the and sending emails, they're a part of the job.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely.
So the jobs that we were looking at, were those like variable costs, the cost of goods sold? Was that like the allocated, the estimated cost, or was that like
those are all real numbers
after the fact, after the job was done?
That's right. That's why when we did, that's why I tell clients, let's take 10 jobs you've done already and let's determine whether you're making money. Now, after we did this with this CEO, he was depressed for a minute because he came into the meeting guaranteeing me that the company was making money. Guarantee, like, Coach, I don't know why we're bothering with this. This is a waste of time. I'm so good at clearing 48%. And Tom and Liz, when he saw this, it was this moment of disbelief.
Yeah. Especially if he's been only looking at this one number, thinking that that's actually his net profit. He's really believing that he's got 48% net profit, only to find out that he's actually negative. I mean, I got to give the guy props for only being upset for a minute. Good for him.
Yeah, just for a minute. Because, and it's very deceiving, because if you're doing 48%, if you're doing a GP of, let's say, 52%, anybody here would think that sounds really good, but it's only as good as how much your overhead is.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the reason why, so like in our groups, we don't let anybody track their gross profit. And the reason why is there are too many people in our industry that are, especially smaller businesses, that are in this, what I call keep up with the Joneses mentality, where they're like, hey, I need to have my own, I need to have cars, and I need to have 2 people in the office. And, you don't need anybody in the office. You're a $200,000 company. No, you don't need all that overhead. You have to. So we force them to look at net profit only for the first 3 months, period. You can't even look at anything else. And got to get to break even that first month. Find out where that break even is, figure out where that is. And then and so actually when they first start in the group, we make them track daily. They're like, that's too much work. That's too hard. I'm like, sorry, Charlie, you got to do it daily, because until you really understand that money, once you do it every day for a month, your understanding is completely different than if you're tracking it once a month or once a week. Yeah, I love that idea, though, of the individual job costing for those people that are like, oh, so hard. Okay, good. Let's just picking that percentage and just adding that percentage on. How simple is that?
How simple is it?
How simple.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
What did Dawn? I can't see. What is Dawn read? Dawn said something, Tom?
Yeah. She says she loves this, that she always thinks that her cost per job, and
she always asks herself, what is my cost per job? And that's how she knows if they're making money or not. And that's why she loves it.
Yeah. Well, now she'll know for sure. There won't be any more guessing games. And then it's fun because, maybe, again, it gives you, back to budgeting, it just gives you that confidence that you're going to make better decisions with the information you're given, and not to just have information to have information, because that frustrates me. People are like measuring things, but then they don't use it, or nobody understands why they're measuring it. Why are measuring this? So.
All right. So I do understand what you're saying now about making it fun, right?
Yeah.
Are you having fun now, Liz? Is this awesome?
Okay. I'm saying I understand about making it fun and how you can make it fun, make it a little bit more fun so that it's something that you're getting new information and it's something that you can work with. It seems like it's very similar to tracking, your basic KPIs. So, because that also is not really fun when you first start. It seems so hard and onerous, but once you start doing it, it's super easy. The numbers are just going in there, and you start seeing like pictures and patterns and plans. Yeah, and your brain starts being able to think about what I could do next. So I see
right now, if I had anybody in the audience to say, "Hey, I'm gonna go through my last 10 and see the results," that stuff excites me so much. I feel like a kid in a candy store because I want them to prove to me that they know exactly what's going in and going out of the company. So yeah. So this is an example of a daily one. The other thing I want to share with you. If it's okay, I just want to do another shared screen since we're talking about budget.
And while you're pulling that up, one of the things you could do with those 10 is put together a model and explain how many jobs you need to do a month to break even, or what's your, how much profit do you need to generate in a month, and then back into, the number of jobs you would need to do in order to do that.
Absolutely.
All right. And I have a really cool exercise that you can do with this as well, you guys. So you could take $100 bill and you could take it with your employees and you could break it down into into ones, right? And have $101 bills. And then you could just take those dollar bills and you could show your team. Okay, so right off the bat, you guys, COGS goes $45. So let's just put $45 just for the employees, and the money is going to go out for that. Here's $45. Okay, and then next, what we got to come up with is we got to come up with our overhead. So equipment. How much money do you guys think we spend on equipment out of $100 bill? Customer pays us $100. How much goes to like supplies and vacuums? What do you guys think? $3? Okay. Yep. Let's go. $3. That's about right. Let's put your $3 and break that down by dollars till we get to the end. And we're like, okay, so now we've got $18, you guys. When we clean a house at the end, all we have left is $18. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, the company's making bank. There's got this for every $100 that comes in, I'm only getting 20. You guys are making $80. Here's what we really have left, $18. So that can be a really fun. Yeah. And actually it has been fun. I've done it twice. I haven't done it in a long time, but it's very enlightening for these employees. And they feel like they now understand. They don't lose clothes as much. They're more careful with the vacuum cleaners. They're not pouring a half a can of barkeeper's friend in the sink because they're understanding how that stuff all plays out.
Yeah, and you could totally do that. I think the more that your team and your staff know the true margins of your funding and budget, the better they're going to be, because so many times they think that the CEO is making all this money. Is so not true. So and if you're able to just show them in a financial performance, hey, you know what, we're sitting at 15% net profit. We have to put it back into the company. It gives them this confidence that you're not putting something over on them.
Right.
This is really an opportunity to, realize that, Liz is not taking 95% of it and then,
Right. And just going out and buying everything under the sun. I do think now that's more so now than ever in the past, where people are much more sensitive to how much money they're actually making off every job. I mean, it's been moving this way for the last decade, but now more than ever, people are just very sensitive to how the boss is, how much money the boss is making versus the people that are actually
they are
putting in the sweat equity, right?
Yeah. Doing the real work.
Yeah, I'm the one doing the work, and how much am I making? Hey, Tom,
So,
I'm curious. What's Denise talking about here? She says,
oh,
sounds like you're.
we did some one-on-ones at the last foundation's event, and we broke down P&Ls and talked about
Nice.
what things needed to look like in order to be profitable.
Nice.
And sometimes you just can't make it up with volume if
Yeah.
some of the ratios aren't right.
Mm-hmm.
You can just go bankrupt faster.
Yeah.
Right.
You can burn a lot of calories and have even less to show for it. So we had some good sessions. Kevin, you had something you wanted to share with us?
Oh yeah, I just thought, as we're talking about budget, again, a fun exercise before we get into budget. See, all of this is really to make it fun, less stressful, exciting. Is the second piece we get into even before budget is we go right into what are we planning? What are our goals? And to me, I think this is really, really fun. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So see if I can make it a little bigger. We have, you can add anything you want here. We have a whole bunch of things, but this is the opportunity to think, what do we want to do? This is before we even talk about the budget. This is your dream time. This is your time to say, what do we want to do? What could be fun? So, do we need new equipment? Do we want new vehicle? But then there's other things besides employee. Like, are we targeting a new customer? Is there a new type of customer we're targeting? And do we need to maybe have a strategy around that? Because that may be a whole different thought process, right? Of
within marketing campaign, there's a lot that goes along with that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Some of it, it could be, it could be targeting people you wouldn't even think that need it. We talk about certain demographics and their need to get cleaning services, but I'm very big in the disability community because I think I've mentioned 2 out of 3 of my kids are on the spectrum. They both have developmental disabilities. So I always try to give this analogy, like, what if you were targeting families who have individuals with disability? That whole conversation, they need services, but more importantly, they need, partners who come in who understand the needs, even if they're only there to do things, like, it is so much part of their life. Like when our cleaning team comes to our house, the first thing they do is they check in with my dog Fifi, who's our service dog, right? So there's just an entire different focus. New technology, new facilities, even revising the pricing model, where do we put that in the goal planning? What are we going to do to improve? Are we going to add, different, in this case, there's a whole focus on videos, do we have new marketing channels? What does that look like? Do we have new KPIs we want to do? So this is to me, I think everything's fun, but this is fun for me. Like, I think if I worked with you, Tom, or you, Liz, and I'm like, hey, let's dream about all the possible goals before we talk about numbers, it may push us in a direction we didn't even think about, because we start with the goal planning first.
I do love this.
Yes.
We talk a lot about my brother on here because he began making a lot of money in a really, really short period of time. And he swears by goal planning in a really big way.
Mm-hmm.
And also modifying, he goes into his goal planning worksheet at least twice, if not 3 times a week. And this, tweaks that, looks at I want more of that. I thought that was going to be more important to me. And it really isn't. So change my mind. I want this. And I love the idea of goal planning. I see it being hard though for a lot.
And it goes on his refrigerator.
Why is it hard? It's, to me, I feel like this is the opportunity to dream.
I think for a lot of people, it goes back to what Tom said earlier. Like, it's hard for a lot of people to, and I'm one of these people as well, to think about the future in that way, in a dream way. It's like, well, I don't know how to dream about what could be in the future because I don't know what's possible or potential. So I don't want to dream about have, earning $50 million next year. Is that possible? I don't know. A lot of people are in that kind of a mode. I don't know how to do it.
Got it.
So,
You don't want to be wrong.
You don't want to be wrong. Yeah.
Well, not even the wrong thing. The wrong thing is absolutely a thing for a lot of the people that we work with. Absolutely. But like in my case, it's not that I don't want to be wrong. It's that just what do I start with? Where do I start? It just seems hard to start with a lot of these things.
I think in that place, if I was working with anyone, what we want to introduce, the saying, we don't know what we don't know, is introduce some possible, it's like prompting, right?
Yeah.
When I work with people, so many times there's this belief, again, this goes back to the philosophy of coaching. There are fundamentally coaches who believe that you have the answer inside of you. Like Liz, you have the answer, and Tom, you have the answer.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those coaches. I've been coaching and consulting 20 years. And to be truthful, they don't have the answers. They don't have the answer. So I believe in prompting consulting, prompt coaching, meaning I would then say, hey, Liz, here's some possibilities to think about that others have thought of. And then it's a multiple choice experience. Instead of putting the onus on you to figure it out, is to say, here's some possibilities.
Absolutely.
And then to put the parameters to say, 50 million doesn't make sense. Right. Yeah. But if you're on a trajectory, you're doing $1 million and you want to go to 1.7, that's possible.
And that goes to what we talked about last week when we had Laura Smith on, that looking at your data is a really good way to be able to see that. And you're pointing out something else, Kedma, is everything's easier with a coach. Because yes, your coach is going to make it so that it's not hard. Whatever the hard thing is, that's the coach's job, is to take away the hard part.
Well, to your point, Liz, I'm going to add just another small word in there. Because English, my second language, and language is so important because it defines how we see the world. Everything is easier with the right coach.
Mm-hmm.
I can show you coaching experiences that doesn't move the needle.
Agreed.
And it depends on who you are, and it depends on how you process.
Yeah.
All of us process differently, where I could come in, and this is the one thing we always talk about with coaching. We call it the dull rock versus the shiny object. Have I ever taught you guys this?
No, but I know a lot about the shiny object.
Okay. So this is what happens. You connect with a coach. You feel like, oh my God, I finally got the shiny object I want. I'm connecting with this coach. They understand me. They understand my budget. They understand my cost. And you engage in this honeymoon experience with them. And at some point, usually 6 months to 12 months down the line, they meet another coach. And that other coach becomes the shiny object, and you become
the dull rock. It's always true.
So what we want to make sure is that it's the right one. And I believe in the idea of having targeted coaching. Mm-hmm. Don't just have a coach to have a coach, but choose a couple of coaches that make sense. I want to leave you with one more thing, because I know I have to drop off in a few minutes, but I would be remiss if I didn't leave you with this. The last thing I'm going to show you is what our budgets look like. Everybody's got different budgets. I just want to show you the way we've done it. You can modify it to whatever you do. I'm not tied to a budget. I'm just tied to, what budget works. So this can absolutely go into, residential or commercial. But what I really like about this is that on the top line, if I make this a little bit bigger for you, you're going to see we have our targeted sales, what we're assuming, and we have the actual. That means that this happens every single month. We're going to put in the actual. That means that, Concor is going to put in the actual. And then we also have here a place for projected balance and actual balance, because you could have a very strong month but maybe your balance is showing a reduction because, not everything is hitting the P&L. It could be hitting the balance sheet. And so this allows me to see, are we going up? Are we going down? And how does that play in the actual? And then depending on the business, right, we base it a lot of times with trucks.
Mhm.
We can modify that, but that's where we're going to look at that daily that you mentioned, Liz. What is my daily amount? I personally don't like to just put an amount here. I like to look at a daily goal and multiply it by the days that vehicle is out.
Oh, me too.
Right. So if we know that truck is out because if 15,000 doesn't tell me anything, this is, unless you tell me, well, that daily truck is valued at $1,500, then I immediately know that truck's out for 10 days.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
then we have obviously your lead tech or your assistant, depending on, so in your case, it could be, two employees going to a job or one, right? And then we're going to have our office team. And this can also include your virtual assistant, right? So it doesn't have to be just payroll. This can also be contracted, fees, not only just payroll driven. And then here's your COGS, right? And then you have all your expenses. So, and then below here, we have our capital expenditures. This is where we're going to get that from the goal planning. We're going to look at, what are we going to be investing in the company? What is going to be our loan payments? And are there additional draws? I religiously can do this, Liz and Tom, in 1 hour.
Nice.
Right? So 1 hour, we're working through it, and then we can modify it. And then generally speaking, once we do that client is going to feel a lot more comfortable in where they want to go.
Yeah. You're
and one more
making it happen. You're not leaving it to chance.
Not leaving it to chance.
And one more thing that I like to tell people too when they're doing this is, in the beginning, you might not have a clue. You don't have an idea of what the numbers are. That's okay. Here's some ideas. Let's start here. Which of them do you like the best? And guess what? In 3 months, we're going to have a better idea. And in 6 months, you're going to know now. Now you're really going to have an idea about, now I kind of really do feel like I know what's possible. Then you can start getting some realistic numbers, but not till you start.
Not till you start.
Not till you start.
Oh, look at the puppy. Look at the dog.
Hello, baby girl.
I can't believe we always do this and it goes so quickly, but I need to hop off. Yeah.
If people want to talk to you, Kedma, how can they reach you?
Well, always through you guys, because you guys are my champions here. Definitely through Conquer. You can go to AGS Conquer now. I love to be on LinkedIn. I have 40,000 of my closest friends that hang out with me on LinkedIn. So you can always, I always suggest connect with me on LinkedIn anyway, because I do have a lot of relationship there. And then Facebook. So, just let me know how we know each other, because sometimes people get on and I have no idea how they know me. So
on your LinkedIn profile, you need to add Smart Business Moves contributor.
Okay, I'll do that. I have a lot on there, but I will add that. I will.
Well, we know you have another meeting, Kedma. So
yes, I'm gonna hop
Thank
off.
you so much, as always. This
Kedma.
was
Thank
fun.
you.
This is fun, and you're awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you are.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
We're done. We'll be back Wednesday, and we'll be doing it again.
There we
So
go.
we'll see you Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern.
Bye
Bye-bye.
now.